Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tuesday training for manual and movement practitioners, where we meet every week to talk functional anatomy, structural balancing, client-centered work, and definitely how to get our clients out of pain. That's what we're all here for every week. That's why I'm here every week. I'm your host for the hour. I'm Gina Schatz, and I've been both a manual and movement practitioner for more than 30 years. We don't need to do the math on that, but it's been a while. And I love sharing with you each week on how I've created client results. Cheryl's joining me in the club seats today from a new state.
Montana.
Yeah. Yay. She made it back safely. So luckily I got to squeeze Cheryl in real life just a few days ago. That was super fun. We just came back from our Shots Method Practitioner Retreat. We meet in person. All of us fly in from all over. Cheryl was one of them. Flew in from one state, flew back into another state 'cause she's a world traveler. And we got to do some workshopping this weekend, which was amazing. It was actually longer than a weekend, but it's meant to be a weekend. It was about 5 days. And that is part of the topic for today. What we uncovered together as all of us workshopping it out together. Our topic for today is intrinsic muscles, intrinsic core, which is actually our focus for the whole month. But what came up for us as we were workshopping out this weekend together was the implications of intrinsic weakness and how it's so needed to be addressed in client work to resolve the source of the pain. And it came up over and over and over again. We were all sort of surprised. I kept looking at Cheryl and she kept looking at me and being like, wow, there it is again. There it is again. There it is again. So we're going to talk today about that while we're here together. And I'm going to share with all of us on Tuesday training about what we uncovered together. For those of you who are watching here on YouTube, I'm so happy that you're here. I'm just waiting for my device to populate that video. I know it's always a little bit of a delay, but welcome. I'm happy to answer your questions while you're here watching live. Lisa's in the club seats. Hello, Lisa. I got to squeeze you in person too, which is makes me very happy. We had such a fun time. I'm glad you guys made it home safely. I haven't seen your faces since you flew back, but we've been keeping track of each other. And for those of you who are joining us on YouTube, I know there's several of you who just recently joined us, and we're so happy that you're here. I love that you're here. It's such a great community of practitioners doing really great work. So we love having you here. Please let me know if you're here watching live. Give me a wave or a thumbs up or something so that I know that you're here. And feel free, please, during training today to ask questions. Use the comment section and ask your questions. As soon as it populates here on my end, I'll be able to see those and I'm happy to answer those questions. And of course, Lisa and Cheryl, while you're here in the club seats, come off mute, ask questions the way we're used to doing that in training. We're going to move through implications of intrinsic weakness today. It's a biggie. We're actually going to use a case study that we workshopped out while we were together this weekend. It was so clear and so useful that it came to mind for me to share while we're all here together in our bigger community as well. As always, we're going to pin it to win it. You guys are playing pin it to win it. It's a fun game. The winnings of the game mean you get more training. It's a easy way to get a no strings attached extra training from me in your inbox just for being here and contributing to our greater learning. So I'm going to pin letters at the bottom of the screen throughout the time that we're here together. Those letters, as you accumulate them, will spell out a word. You'll take that word and you'll post it in the comment section below this video in YouTube. And then my team will go in and see all your pins and we will send you your winnings. So I've been asked a few times, again, there are no strings attached. It's just my way of acknowledging you for keeping your head in the game. So let us know that you're here and pin to win and we will send you some winnings. And also, I said this last week, for those of you who pin to win every week, I'm making new trainings for you because you tapped me out. It's such a fun game. I didn't realize how popular it would be. So if you're waiting on me for some training, that's why I'm coming up with something new and fresh, but we're keeping our list and you will absolutely get something in the mail to us. Another reason you may not have received it is if we sent you a comment below your pin, it might mean that we don't have your email address. So we do need to email it to you. YouTube doesn't like external links, especially in comments, because it'll get flagged as spam. So just make sure that we have your email. You don't have to leave it in the comment section. You can email me directly. My email's available to you. Just make sure I can ship it over to you, and I will. Okay. So pin to win while we're playing today. We also want to acknowledge so many new subscribers to our YouTube channel. I'm super excited. For those of you who are here on YouTube, mark your calendars because I have a special class coming up just for you, just for subscribers. So everybody who's subscribed to the YouTube channel, I'll be teaching a master class for you on April 29th. We're going to post all about that in the channel. You'll see it. It'll be live with me, but you'll have access to the replay, of course, just like you do for Tuesday training. It would be fun to meet together live if you want to do that. So we'll do it a little bit later on in the day, and we'll post all of those details for you, but definitely mark later in the afternoon for yourself on April 29th. It's our subscriber class. So love that you guys are all here. I wish that I had clarity on my device right now of this video so that I could watch your comments coming in, and it's just not populating for me yet. There it is. Just needed to refresh my screen. Hey, Gary, I'm glad that you're here. All right, everybody's here in the house, accounted for. We've got all of our admin taken care of. Kathy's in the house. Yay. Hi, Kathy. I see you. Thanks for giving me a high five. Glad that you guys are here. All right, we're going to move into intrinsic muscles and the implication of intrinsic weakness. So all month this month, we're going to talk about intrinsic muscles and how we use them. It's actually a third of the shots method. So it's it's a big deal. It's kind of a big deal. I don't want to overwhelm us, but it's a big deal. And it's one of the pieces that I found while I was working clinically that really got my results to like catapult into home runs more frequently. So I don't want to minimize this topic and I don't want to overwhelm us with the topic, but I really want you to just have understanding about what it is and how to utilize it. So we talked last week. Hey, Rhonda, I'm glad you're here. We talked last week about intrinsic muscles. There are two classifications of muscles that I like to outline, intrinsic being one of them and phasic being the other. Anybody here in club seats remember briefly, succinctly, what the difference is between those two classifications that you could offer us? What does classification of phasic mean versus classification of intrinsic mean? If we all start at the same page, we could actually grow together on this topic. Anybody here in club seats want to offer that? Anybody watching live on YouTube want to offer it? You could type it in the comment section as well.
Phasic muscles are muscles that you can see and they create.
Oh, cliffhanger. I don't think Cheryl's internet's ever done that before. All right, she's middle of the way. I'm sure she's explaining it. I'll fill in until her internet gets us back. Phasic muscles are the muscles you're familiar with. Phasic muscles are the muscles that create visible joint action movement. They're the big muscles that you see in the mirror. They change shape while you're working out. They create joint actions, like my biceps are creating this joint action. My triceps are creating this joint action. So the phasic muscles are the big guys that do gross motor movement. The intrinsic muscles, oh, Cheryl's back. Do you want to pick up where you left off? What are intrinsic muscles? I just went over phasic.
Okay, intrinsic muscles are a group of muscles that are deep in the body and are more for like stability and balance. Are they? They are for balance and for posture.
Posture. Yep. Posture and balance. So
yes, okay.
Yep. Well done. Really good. So they do have a connection to stability, but in the interest of getting clear, I like to use that part of the conversation after when I'm talking about the difference between phasic and intrinsic, because there are some phasic muscles that also do stabilizing work like at joints. So that word stable, stabilizing, stabilization can get a little like spider webbish where it all starts to stick together. In my experience learning and also watching others learn. So let's just keep that word aside for 1 second. And if we just use 2 words to describe intrinsic muscles, it really creates clarity in their distinction from phasic. So phasic is big, visible, joint actions, gross motor movement. Intrinsic is smaller, unseen, and posture and balance. And I like to add aligned posture, not just any old posture. And we all know that as body workers. Hey, Gregory Armstrong, I'm glad you're here too. We all know that posture as body workers gets to be healthy posture. So if I'm slouching right now, I have a posture, but it's not healthy posture. It's not aligned posture. So that distinction also matters when you're identifying what an intrinsic muscle needs to do, and also in the conversation around the implications of when they're not doing, they're doing. So if my intrinsic muscles can only be strong when they're doing their job, which is true of any muscle in any classification, it's only strong when it's doing its job. Its job is contraction. When that muscle contracts, it's doing its job. When an intrinsic muscle contracts, its job is aligned posture. Anything that pulls me away from gravity. So if Murph has aligned posture in his 4 curves right now, if I have unaligned posture and my spine looks like this, my intrinsic muscles are still present in my body. I didn't leave them in the back seat, but they're not contracting. They're not getting stronger. They're not doing their job, which is aligned posture and balance. Okay. So you guys got it? You guys look like you're thinking, but I know you've got this because I've talked to you about this before. Okay. So does everybody here on YouTube get that? You guys who are here watching live, do you get the difference between aligned posture and balance as a twofold job of intrinsic, and gross motor movement and visible joint action for phasic muscles? Okay. We're only going to focus on the intrinsic muscles for today. And it's helpful to do it in contrast. That's cool. So if these intrinsic muscles along the spine are doing their job, the erector spinae, which run from the base of the cranium all the way down to the sacrum, when they're doing their job, they're contracting, because all muscles doing their job are contracting, and they're creating what their name says. They erect the spine away from the earth. They hold the spine upright, opposing gravity, perpendicular to the earth. When they're contracting, that's what they do. They can be working a long time, like all day long while you're opposing gravity, for sure. And we can also distort that posture and still feel like we're upright, opposing gravity. I'm not laying down right now, but if I slouch again, those muscles aren't helping me keep myself perpendicular to gravity. Something else now has to do the job of what these muscles are not doing. When we start to see that clarity, we can start to see the implications of them being weak. So easy out of the gate, if an intrinsic muscle is weak, I don't have optimal posture. If an intrinsic muscle is weak, I also can't balance. Balance is a big deal because it is involved in many daily activities that we do, even if we don't work out. The most common is walking. So walking is a balance activity. Every other step, I'm on one leg, which by definition is balance. Same thing with going up and down stairs. I'm on one leg, I'm balancing. So while walking looks like a phasic activity, I can see it with my eyeballs, not just my mind's eye. I can see it with my eyes, and there's joint action that I can identify, which means it's a phasic activity, and I'm moving my body in space from point A to point B. That's very true. That's all phasic. There's also this layer of intrinsic muscles that have to do that job optimally. So when we do gait assessment, which we also did at our retreat, we noticed a few gait patterns that rather than just getting from point A to point B, they looked like they were about to topple over, like a weeble wobble. They didn't fall over, luckily, nobody got hurt, but the body was definitely giving indications that there wasn't enough intrinsic strength to do that job of moving this container from point A to point B. Now, on the surface, that doesn't really seem like it could be that big of a deal until we start recognizing the idea of reciprocal inhibition, which we've talked about in earlier trainings. If reciprocal inhibition is new to you, please go back, and we have plenty of training on that here on our channel. Go back and find reciprocal inhibition because it helps to know what all the players are in an action, any action. No muscle moves by itself. No muscle moves by itself, including intrinsic muscles. And if you're working with chronic pain or pain patterns, then you know that 90% of the pain in the body is referred from somewhere else, which could be found in that concert of reciprocal inhibition muscles. It could be that one guy who's supposed to be doing a part of the job of joint action or movement or posture or balance isn't doing his job of movement or posture or balance, and he's recruiting another muscle to help still get the job done. Perfect example. The visual assessment that we had when we were watching Gait, the person was still moving from point A to point B, but how they were getting that done was definitely with recruitment patterns. It wasn't with the body's design of whose muscle supposed to do that work. There were patterns and compensation patterns and concessions being made to get the job done, job being walk from point A to point B. So I don't want us to get too pile-drived in data right now because I recognize that that could be a interesting place to go. Cheryl and Gary, I love your feedback. Does that feel pile-drive right now, or are you following along perfectly fine? You got it. Woo-hoo! You've heard it before and you know exactly what it is. That makes me happy. Okay, guys, how about those of you watching with us on YouTube? Is it landing for you? Is it coming up clear, or does it feel a little bit like too much data? Okay, one of the things that is helpful to remember when we're looking for client results is what you're working with. It sounds obvious. What you're working with is their anatomy. So you want to know the anatomy and the design of the anatomy, the functional anatomy, to be able to sort through the problem. That's all that we just did it. Laura's got it. Okay, perfect. That's all that we just did. We just took the anatomy and answered that question. All right. So intrinsic muscles do aligned posture and balance, pulling away from gravity. If your posture or your client's posture seems a little gravity centered, then there is obvious intrinsic weakness, obvious intrinsic weakness. And if you watch them looking like they're teeter-tottering, they're not balancing with a grounded approach. So that means that they're also lacking intrinsic strength because they're not doing the balance part that those muscles do. So Gregory says a little bit too much data. Okay, so let's just see if we can bring us back to what we already covered. Phasic muscles do gross motor movement and joint actions. You can physically see it happening. The body is moving and making strides. Laura says, I've been working on Gait with a client recently, so this is a great review. Good. Yeah, we did a lot of Gait this weekend. And we found so many things this year that we didn't find last year. So that was actually really valuable. There's so much to observe in Gait. Not only just the gait pattern itself, but what else you're seeing in the body that the body is telltaling on. So look for that, Laura. That's so good. Phasic actions move the body in space. Intrinsic actions hold the body in space. Hold the body with aligned posture and hold the body with balance so they don't weeble wobble when they fall over. When phasic muscles are doing their job, they're doing it in concert with each other. When we're creating movement in the body, that's never being done by one muscle by itself. The same is true for intrinsic action. When the body is being held in space, there's not one muscle that's doing that. And in both of those scenarios, whether we're moving across the space or being held optimally in the space, the muscle, the main guy in reciprocal inhibition, we know there's a main guy, there's a main opposite guy, There's a group of helper bees and the like. That's all part of reciprocal inhibition. When we're moving the body across the room, which is a phasic action, the main guy might not be doing it because he's got all these other guys that he can sort of default power to and recruit to get the job done. Same thing goes for intrinsic. When I'm being held in space and I look like I have optimal posture and I'm not weeble wobbling in any way, it doesn't automatically mean that all the intrinsic muscles who are meant to do that job are actually doing it. In the same way that I could walk across the room and not use the prime mover that does one of those joint actions, I can also be held in space and not be using the prime muscle who's supposed to be doing that lifting. Is that making sense? Gregory, is that helping? Is that review helping with the data and keeping all of that organized? I know there's a little bit of a delay on the live, so I'll look for your comment to let me know if you're feeling caught up. Okay. Assuming that we're caught up and we can keep going with this, I'd love to workshop through one of the findings that we found this weekend that has a tremendous amount of implication when it comes to back pain. Back pain, low back pain, hip pain, even neck and shoulder pain, and definitely, okay, good, Gregory, I'm so glad. Even gait patterns, like it could also affect gait patterns. The truth is that with intrinsic muscles, I have found that intrinsic weakness affects almost everything because of their job. So intrinsic muscles hold my body in an aligned place so I can go do the action that I want to do. In our master class, Maximizing the Lever System, and we also talked about it here on Tuesday training, so there's other videos, we identified that in order for us to do movement or to create movement without pain, our body needs to be aligned for that to happen. And we went into depth about all the highs and wows, highs and wows, all the wows and highs, all of that about it. We did that in that masterclass. So take it for my word for now. If that information hasn't yet been absorbed by you, that's totally fine. You can go grab it. But we need to be aligned for phasic action to happen and for phasic action to happen safely, which means no pain, and for phasic action to happen with benefit. Like I'm creating gains from the work I'm doing. I'm actually getting something out of this workout right now, whatever the movement is, whatever the type of workout is. So that tells me then that in order for me to engage phasically without pain, prevention of pain, and increase in gains, I've got to be aligned for me to do that. And if I need to be aligned for me to do that, it's taking me right back to my idea about what intrinsic muscles do, which is aligned posture. We know that there's got to be intrinsic action in there in order for us to have safe movement. Hey, Anna, so glad you're here. Yes, our SHOTS method formula, alignment, strength, function. Exactly. We keep using that over and over and over again. And so another reason why we've adopted this idea about intrinsic muscles as a third of our method, because it just covers so much territory. Think about it. If I'm looking at movement as a movement practitioner, or I'm trying to figure out as a manual practitioner why my client moves and then has pain, isn't there also a full discovery on their alignment that's part of figuring out how that happened and what's needed? There is. And so if there is, that means you've got to be able to include intrinsic muscles and what they do and how to identify them, or you won't be able to figure out the alignment that's needed in the movement. You don't have to be the practitioner that's creating the movement. So there's sometimes, I know we have lots of new friends here. You don't have to be a movement practitioner for this information to matter. Because what happens for manual practitioners is their clients come from the pain that was created in the movement. And then they come to the table to try to get it, quote, massaged out. But that's not how it's going to be massaged out. And that's one of the case studies that we worked on this weekend that just really landed it. So we all clear on intrinsic and phasic and how intrinsic is needed even in phasic activity. Like it really isn't separate. It's really woven into the fabric of all things. Okay, so let's now move to what I know is to be chronic back pain and sources of hip pain, etc. And let's talk about what are the intrinsic muscles. I've already named them, by the way. What are the intrinsic muscles here in this area of the body that hold this curve in this aligned posture? Meaning the body came with 4 curves in the spine, and the muscles that hold those 4 curves are the intrinsic muscles. What muscles hold this lumbar curve in place here? Anybody?
Erector spinae.
Yes, exactly.
Erector spinae.
Exactly. Thanks, Gary. So they run from the base of the cranium all the way down the spine onto the sacrum, and they hold the spine upright. And upright here in this segment of spine, upright, optimal posture, optimal alignment has a curve in it. That this is neutral for the body. It's not neutral in this area of the body for the spine to actually be straight, like military straight. That's not how we are designed. We're designed to have a slight curve here, and that to the body is upright. That's neutral. That means nothing's going on. Okay. The muscles that create that curve and hold that curve are the erector spinae on this side of the spine. What about on the other side of the spine? So we know from maximizing the lever system, and we know from our principles that there's always muscles on one side and muscles on the other whenever there is an action happening. And that action can be a phasic action, like elbow flexion and extension, or that action can be holding the body, right? Because now we're on intrinsic action is holding me in space with optimal alignment. So we've identified one side of the lever that holds. What about the other side? What muscle would be holding on the other side? Anybody?
In that area, is it the psoas?
Yep. Psoas. Yep. So
Yeah.
we've got erector spinae here. Whoops. I almost dropped Murph. And the psoas here, right? Right on the spine. The psoas we know has a lot of responsibility in the body, and part of its responsibility is to stabilize, back to your word, Cheryl, to stabilize this part of the spine. Stabilize meaning as intrinsic, holding its own, keeping this curve neutral in its alignment, allowing that gentle curve of what we know as a lumbar curve to be natural and neutral. The erector spinae on the back and the psoas on the front sandwich the spine like this and hold it in place with a gentle curve in it. Now, just as I said before about reciprocal inhibition, so Gregory, I'm thinking of you. This is where we're going to start layering on our data here. Just like in reciprocal inhibition in all areas of the body, it's never just one muscle and it's never just 2 muscles. But you want to identify the primary and its opposite as soon as you can, whether you're working on a physical joint action like elbow flexion, or whether you're focused on an intrinsic action like optimal posture. You want to always identify the primary guy and his opposite as quickly as you can, like we just did, because it will help you solve the puzzle piece later. Gary, I knew there was a question brewing. Yes.
I may have been misinformed, but I thought psoas was more of a phasic muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Is that incorrect? Is it more intrinsic?
It's not incorrect. He's one of the few guys in the body who has a dual action. So
Okay.
he's
Okay.
classified as both phasic and intrinsic. I'm glad you caught that. Yep.
Mm.
There aren't many muscles that cross over into dual roles from the phasic side of things. And I actually, maybe I should do the math on that and see if I can figure out what the numbers are, because I know some of you who like data would really like that information. But what do you know the phasic action of psoas to be, Gary?
Well, it's stabilizing what is going on in the posterior part of the body. So it's trying to keep things upright and erect But my thought first went to the abdominis muscles because they seem to be right in front versus where I get the psoas is deeper and hooks onto the spine. So I guess, I don't know. I'm not sure what the relationship is, but then I'm guessing that the abdominis are more of a helper, intrinsic helper. Is that correct? I don't know.
It's not that they're an intrinsic helper, so we don't want to switch. I'm really glad you asked this question, Greg, so I can hear what's in the question and I can offer some clarity. So thanks for offering that. Keep this in mind, guys. We don't want to flip-flop muscle classifications while we're trying to understand what they do. We want to use the classifications first and then find out what the body is doing. So for example, it's not that, Psoas does both, so I understand where that would be confusing, but when he's doing part of his job, he's not flipping to be an intrinsic muscle as much as what action are you observing? What action are you assessing? If the action is posture, I need to have a neutral curve here in my spine. That is an action, but nothing's moving. The action, the work of that is opposing gravity. So that is an intrinsic property classified as that, and what muscle does that? If you know that the psoas holds the spine upright, which it does, the answer is in that definition. If it holds intrinsic, the body upright away from gravity, there's the action. It's an intrinsic action. Okay, so rather than trying to chase the muscle, which are constantly in motion, go by what are you observing? What do you see happening? What needs to happen? What should be happening? What's happening? The phasic action of the psoas, though, when it does move, when you do see it, when it's not doing the uprightness and the holding, is hip flexion. He's a primary hip flexor, right? And also when the legs come up in this direction. So he has a dual role. And it's important to know that, the phasic action and its intrinsic action, because that's part of how he gets into trouble. When one or both of those is distorted. So Anna, your question, at what point does the psoas move from posterior to anterior? Do you mean like where it's attached, Anna? Its attachment points are right on the transverse process, and then it goes anterior from there onto the femur. Okay, so we're going to look at psoas and erector spinae just for the beginning part of our journey here into when intrinsic muscles are needed and the implications when they're not. And for those of you who are quiet now and you're like, Gina, there's other muscles that do other things. There's other muscles that do hip flexion here. It's not just exactly, because no muscle works by himself. I am with you on this. We are a team. That's part of reciprocal inhibition. The difference is that the other muscles that are probably coming to mind for you that also do hip flexion don't also hold the spine upright. So they're only phasic. They're on the phasic side of where the psoas sits half of his time. But if they're not holding the posture upright, they don't have an intrinsic quality. They have a phasic quality. They're either working to do the phasic action or they're waiting to do the phasic action. That's what phasic muscles do that don't have a dual purpose. Okay, and if you did that, I'm proud of you that you know your muscles enough to be challenged or want to challenge me. That's great. If you're still learning your muscles, that's okay, but learn them because it'll help you solve the problem easier. Okay, so if we know that the intrinsic muscles are engaged, getting stronger, powerful, doing their part that's needed, and that means that erector spinae are holding the spine upright and the psoas is holding the spine upright, great. What happens then when we slouch? What happens then to the erector spinae and the psoas when we sit with our lumbar spine moving backwards towards our chair that we're sitting on? What happens to both the erector spinae and the psoas?
They stop working. They stop doing the job.
They stop
Which
doing the
is-
intrinsic job.
Mhm.
Yeah, is that what you were going to say, Cheryl? Sorry, I think I talked
Yeah,
over
well,
you.
I'm just thinking their action of contraction is no longer happening.
Exactly. What is happening?
They're on the slack or they're lengthening.
Erector spinae are lengthening, psoas becomes on the slack. So neither of them are available now to do their intrinsic job. Gregory says compressed. Which ones are compressed, Gregory? So neither of them are available now to do their intrinsic job, which is holding the spine upright away from gravity, still intrinsic. Okay, great. What other posture could be happening down here that would prevent psoas and erector spinae from holding the spine upright?
What other action did you say?
What other what else could you see in the body besides slouching? What else could you see visibly with your visual assessment that would let you know that the erector spinae and the psoas were not holding neutral alignment, optimal alignment in this area?
Like an exaggerated arch, like an exaggerated curve.
Yes, when there's too much of a good thing, it's also not good. Too much is not optimal, it's too much. Not enough is not optimal, it's not enough. So when there's an exaggerated lumbar curve, when the body's being pulled anterior of its axis or not being held in its axis, depending on, I mean, these are different circumstances that the body would be navigating, but this lumbar curve gets exaggerated. Can you think of a couple people right now that you serve or that you know where their lumbar curve is exaggerated? What does it look like? Gary, you coming up with some pictures in your mind? You're muted.
The sacrum is then extended anterior to where it normally is.
Yep, the sacrum or the
So-
pelvis. Yep, so there could be an anterior
Pelvis is
tilt.
anterior tilt.
Yep, absolutely. What else? What other ways could we see an exaggerated curve?
Hmm.
After delivery, after pregnancy,
Oh, pregnancy, yeah. Yeah.
right? Or someone who has adopted a standing posture of their belly button is forward, their tail feathers are back, which is also an anterior tilt, but we're not going to look so much at the anterior tilt here. We just want to just take your eyes only to the spot that you're looking for and not get too quickly distracted by other body parts. That's just there to confirm it for you. But there are folks that we all know that have an exaggerated lumbar curve that don't have an anterior tilted pelvis. We all just worked on one this weekend, Cheryl, right? Like that, we saw two of them actually. Yes, Rhonda, when the abdomen protrudes, when there's just lack of tone, lack of muscle tone, or excess tissues, body weight, or if they're just used to holding themselves in that way, that can be for a lot of reasons, by the way. A lot of reasons that vary as wild as the rainbow. Somebody who has an exaggerated lumbar curve and an abdomen that is further anterior than it needs to be doesn't have to be because of excess weight. Their exaggerated lumbar curve could be because of an imbalance in one of the other curves, right? Because all the curves balance each other. Lumbar and cervical mirror each other, thoracic and sacrum mirror each other, and there's a cranial sacral law in the body. If that's new to you, please go back and watch those trainings here on the channel so that you have that, because that is the gateway to figuring out what am I supposed to do with this client. But if we're just focused here on this area, trying to find our clarity around the intrinsic weakness and the implication of that. If the spine isn't held in neutral in the lumbar area, wouldn't it be that these muscles here are held in a shorter position and this muscle here is held in a longer position? Wouldn't it be that there's more contractile pressure, even if it's not contractile stress? So don't get those two confused if those of you who know tension types. And if you don't, go back and find a video on that because there's that too. These muscles would be held in a shortened position. The psoas would be held in a lengthened position. Do we all agree on that if the lumbar curve is exaggerated? Okay, great. So wouldn't it be then that the client would have tension in their lumbar spine? They'd feel discomfort. They'd have low back pain. They'd feel like it needs to let go. They would feel maybe a gripping. They would want you to massage it. They'd want you to stretch it. They might be stretching it. They might even be using, I had a client send me a picture of one of the therapy guns, which I'm a fan of, but the therapy gun was on a, some kind of garage tool, a joist, you know, where you unwind them and then you screw them and then they get tighter on the thing. And he had it like duct taped onto this and it was like on the wall so that he could just lean back on it right in this area right here. Because of this scenario I'm pointing out to you right now, do you think that that got rid of his pain? By digging deep on these muscles here that were in a shortened position and also feeling tight. Do you think that got rid of his pain? Do you think it could get rid of his pain if we just worked deeply here on these muscles that were too tight? Gary's maybe, Cheryl's a no. Go ahead, Gary, talk us through. How would that help? Anybody here watching live? Do you think that if we had an exaggerated lumbar curve and there was tension here in the erector spinae, that releasing that tension would help get rid of the symptoms?
I can see how he thought it would.
For sure.
That's
It might be
probably,
temporary.
yeah. No, I don't, probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can see Lisa's a no. Okay, good. So we could see Anna's a no, Laura's a no. Okay, shots method in the house. So it's tempting when these muscles feel tight to both you as the practitioner and the client that you're in service to. It's tempting to go and release them, to go and stretch them. But Gina, the muscle fibers are closer together. They need to be lengthened. I get that. I hear that all the time. However, short term, maybe. Good, Gregory. Exactly. So what we want to do is find out, well, what would be the long-term solution? If releasing these shortened fibers that are physically creating distress for the client you're working on, and your business is to get them out of that physical distress, what would be the solution? If it's not to release these, well, what do we do then?
Look at the opposite side of the lever.
And do what with it?
Strengthen and contract.
Yes. If these muscles are shortened because they're the only ones holding this curve in place and they're doing more of that because this guy's doing less of it, I'm not going to take away the work that they're doing and expect that this is going to be resolved. It won't. The only way to resolve this is to make them both work. Strengthen the ES. What's ES, Anna? ES.
Erector
Sure.
spinae.
Strengthen erector spinae. Almost strengthen this guy. So these erector spinae are in a shortened position. They're contracting. They're doing all the work that they can to hold up this lumbar spine. The lumbar spine is exaggerated, so they're shortened even more than what's neutral. They're actually in hyperextension of the lumbar spine at this point because the lumbar spine is more than it needs to be, like a back bend would be, which means this guy is in a lengthened position and not holding, because any muscle that's lengthened isn't holding. So if these guys are over holding and this guy is under holding, these guys aren't the problem. The problem is the guy not doing a job. The lengthened muscle is not holding. The job is to hold. When we're talking about intrinsic strength and their job, the job of intrinsic muscles is to hold the body in alignment, opposing gravity. These guys are off because even in this back bend, they're not opposing gravity. They're kind of like going back towards gravity. If they really went the nth degree, if they really did a back bend, that would be towards gravity, not away. So we know that there's a problem here. But the problem isn't that they're doing their job. The problem is that this guy isn't doing his job. Came up a few times, even in our retreat. Oh, I really need to release this. I really need to release this. I need to let this go. I need to let this go. I need to release this and let this go. No, no. The reason why it's overdoing is because it's only half the job. It's only half the party that's supposed to do the whole job. And we said that at the start of our conversation. The body will get it done, even if the guy who's supposed to do it isn't really doing it. Somebody else will jump in. In this case, these guys jump in more. They take on their full-time job and a part-time job on the weekend, while this guy did not show up for work. Right? So these guys get tired, they get symptomatic, but the solution is not in the symptom. Rarely is. The symptom is just a guidepost. So for those of us who do stretch therapy and deep tissue release and long hold yoga holds and all the things that we do to lengthen, sure. And as Gregory says, short term, but the solution is to know their job, to know the alignment that is required when they're doing their job and get them to do their job. Not stop them from doing their job, to get them to do their job. Do you guys see that when the psoas starts to do his job, the lumbar curve will return to its neutral curve instead of its exaggerated curve, because the psoas is now holding the front of the house in place. So now we return to a neutral curve. These guys naturally work less. They don't have to be released or lengthened or massaged or thumpered on a wall. They don't have to anymore. The only reason they showed up like that was because this side wasn't. Huge misconception sometimes. And it's super easy to see when you look at the lever and you know the job of the muscles. At least I hope it is. Is that what's happening for you guys? Is it looking simple now that we workshopped it through this way? Yes? You guys are looking a little slow in your nods. Is it feeling easy or are you still, yes? Okay. Okay, excellent. I want it to look easy once we workshop it out because it's always that way. It's always that way. But it could be super distracting if someone comes in and says, my back is so tight. I just need you to release it. Please give me a stretch. Give me some relief here. I really need to get some freedom. And you're like, yeah, wow, those muscles are tight. The solution though is, what are they supposed to be doing? When you understand the job, the design of the functional anatomy, you just return it back to its job. You don't have to worry about symptoms. Laura says, makes sense. You'll be happy. I don't go releasing everything. Gee, I'm very happy you don't go releasing everything. You drank the Kool-Aid. Yay. If that was the only thing that you guys got from coming to Tuesday training, it would just serve so much. Think about it like this. Let's give you a different side of the implication, okay? It really helps to think about this in the instance of pregnancy, like, you know, later term pregnancy when a female body is holding a lot of weight on the front that's needed. So we're not in judgment about their size or how much they work out or anything like that. That's all we're not even thinking distracting thoughts like that because it's all distracting, by the way. None of that's relevant. None of it's relevant. I'm not working out right now and my spine's holding me up. So that's not relevant. So let's say that we have erector spinae that are on overdrive and we have psoas who's not. And the erector spinae are on overdrive. if I release them first before targeting the psoas, what would happen to the body? What state would I leave the body in? Go ahead, Gary. You got it.
The anatomical term is wonky.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you would actually destabilize them. You would destabilize them. And so back to the word that you chose for us at the beginning, Cheryl, there is a stabilizing nature to opposing gravity in a graceful arrangement. That's stable. It's called grounded and earthed, right? When we're in relationship to the earth, the way our design is, it's stable, it's grounded, but it feels easy and graceful. There shouldn't be physical discomfort and awkwardness when we're traversing the earth. So if I were to release these muscles, now there's nothing holding this curve in alignment. This guy's offline, and now these guys are going to do less than their job. Now my core is literally, as you called it, wonky. I'm not able to hold my own. Nothing's holding if I release the only guys that are in contraction. And the intrinsic, I haven't used this word before, holding. So this came up today while we're all together. I love this. It's holding alignment, not gripping and bracing, holding alignment, holding that optimal alignment, holding my body on the earth in a place of freedom. If I let go of the muscles that are doing the holding, there's no holding anymore. Now balance is really challenged, which again points us to there's an absence of intrinsic engagement here. That's a problem because I need that intrinsic engagement to do all movement. We already talked about that. Rhonda says, oh, hang on one second, Gary. Rhonda says, does it help to release the short muscles and then strengthen the prime mover? You can, and sometimes you need to do that. You need to have an entry point, like depending on how much shortness and tension is in the shorter guys, the lever becomes imbalanced. I can't tell you 100% of the time, always do it in that order, but definitely if you go to target one side of the lever to lengthen or contract and it's non-responsive and you're sure your technique is good, then go to the other side and let that side become more amenable to a lever idea and then return back to the beginning. The key though is what you said, then go back. If I'm releasing these so that I can then strengthen here, I've got to make sure both sides ended up where I need them to be equally working to hold that curve. You got to go back. Great question, actually. And Rhonda said, you got it. Oh, did I answer it already? Okay, great. What other, Gary, you had another question. What's your question too?
So I'm not certified in pregnancy massage, but in a situation where you have that weight in the front, and the psoas is being challenged here, is there something that can be done for a pregnant woman that would help strengthen the psoas so that we're not creating an exaggerated curve there due to the weight in the front?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I am certified in pregnancy massage. I don't do a whole lot of it at this stage, but my experience working with women at all stages of their pregnancy is that their connective tissue also changes a lot during the different trimesters. So if you are working with pregnant women, you should at least read an article about it or 5, right? Like you got to know what's going on so that you don't destabilize her. The same way we just talked about it on Murph, the last thing you want to do on any body, any physical body, is destabilize them. Because then their experience is going to be very uncomfortable. And if you do it with pregnancy, it's dangerous. Because if they fall, it's super dangerous, right? It could be fatal. Like don't tinker with that. So the answer to your question though is depending on what state of their pregnancy, like where along the line were they, and how much movement practices you have. If they're able to target the psoas, absolutely. They should be targeting all muscles the whole time they're pregnant to their ability. But what the highlight I wanted us to have is what you don't want to do is strip deep tissue and release the ones on the back. There is a point in time, I used to say this to, there was a client that I had in New York, and I used to go to her house, and we used to like follow her pregnancy on the calendar. And I was like, there's going to be a point where we can't actually keep tinkering here. And also knowing, so I was with her between her second pregnancy and her third. When she knew she was going to get pregnant, that's the time to really work on it. Just before you're pregnant, like really make sure that before any hormones or chemicals or connective tissue changes or weight distribution occurs, make sure you're aligned so that you can go do the thing that you want to do with your body. That's true for anything though, right? Not like being pregnant is a sport, but you're asking your body to do something. So anytime you're asking your body to do something, absolutely from an aligned and strengthened, phasic and intrinsic strengthened place is the way that we can be safe to do all those things. Yeah, great question. Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions while we're here, guys? No?
I just
Cheryl.
have
Yeah.
a thought.
Mhm.
If intrinsic muscles are not doing their job, and sometimes phasic muscles will come in and do the job for an intrinsic muscle, it must be pretty confusing for a phasic muscle to try to do an intrinsic job.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, it seems like, how do they even know what to do?
Well, that's when you'll start to see patterns that look odd, like you should go handle that pattern. So I'll be brief about it, just given our time, but any muscle will jump in and help another muscle to get the job done. Like literally your body will do anything you ask it to do, even at an expense later down the line. That's how we get into trouble and don't realize where it started. So any muscle can jump in. If you think about just the phasic muscles by themselves, a synergist, a helper bee could jump in and act like he's the kingpin, and he's not. And he'll get the job done, but the rollout of that is fatigue and other patterns that guy's main job was get distorted, and then it just sort of rolls out from there. When it's an intrinsic trade-off, a phasic guy comes in and does the work of an intrinsic job. The only thing a phasic muscle can do if he doesn't have intrinsic qualities is just grip. Just grip, because that's what intrinsic muscles, they don't grip, but they're holding. So it's not like I'm going to get the movement to happen, but it's going to look out of alignment while like what's happening with your arm when you're moving it. You don't see that same thing happening with intrinsic muscles because the action is just like upward grace. But inside, if that upwardness, like someone standing in place, is not doing that with intrinsic muscles, when you go to work on their body, you'll see these muscles are gripping, these muscles are gripping. There's like gripping in all the places to like hold, but it's a gripping when a phasic muscle does it because that's not their natural state of contraction. Their natural, phasic's muscle natural state of contraction is long and lean and long and lean. That's not what intrinsic muscles do when they contract. They're wired differently. So if a phasic muscle is taking over for an intrinsic muscle, he looks like he's in a glitch. He feels like he's in a glitch. It's tempting to go release him. Totally get that. You should. But if you don't return the intrinsic strength to the arena, that phasic muscle is just going to jump in and grip again anyway afterward. And that's what Groundhog's Day sessions look like. Did that answer it for you, Cheryl?
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. And it takes us right to the top of the hour with our last letter. So if you guys have been pinning it, summit, it is summit season. We have a huge 3-day event every year coming up next week, actually, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this month. If you have not reserved your seat yet, please do that. It's like Christmas in April, Christmas in spring, usually for me and all of us here. So there is no cost to come. If you're used to being here live, then that's where we'll be. So we won't be here on Tuesday training next week, but you can come see us at the summit for an hour and you'll see 2 speakers in that period of time. And if you're used to watching on the replay, you'll also be able to watch the summit on the replay. So April 15th, 16th, and 17th. If you haven't received an email yet, you should have. So that might mean that we don't have your email address, but you should have received an invite to come and join us. We'd love for you to do that. And then we will be back here for Tuesday training 2 weeks from today, and we're going to continue our conversation on intrinsic muscles. We're also continuing our journey on workshopping out everything that we've learned on intrinsic muscles in the club this month. So if this information matters to you and you feel like this would be valuable for you to have, come join us in the club. You can be my guest there for 7 days, for a whole week. You can gobble up the whole course if you want to in that period of time and really learn how to workshop out all of the intrinsic muscles and their actions and how to apply that to the client work that you're doing. You can come and be my guest for a week. There's, again, no obligation to stay, but you'll get some goodness while you're there. So Summit's happening next week. Intrinsic work with clients is happening all month in the club and all month here while we're on Tuesday training. And we will be back for Tuesday training 2 weeks from today. Okay. Excellent. I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you.